All right, so now that we've learned and practiced some steps of the race strategy, I'm going to show you how this really translates itself into a paragraph about your reading with the question that's written right here in green. So over the course of the last week, you've been meeting in groups and you've been asked to work on collecting evidence and examples of different pressures in your character's life and how those pressures have forced your character to adapt and change. And so what I've done here is I've written a paragraph. Okay, this is my paragraph right over here. And I've written my paragraph using the race strategy. And I've included a restate of this question, my answer, cited evidence from the text, and an explanation. And my writing is over the story Popularity, the one that we were reading with our character Will, and how he treated the Allens and wanting to be popular. And so as we go through my written response, we're going to notice all the different parts of the race strategy so that we can highlight and label those. And we're going to talk about what it means to explain and how we would go about explaining our answer for this particular question. So with that in mind, I'm going to remind us of all of the different parts of the strategy. We have restate, answer, cite evidence, and explain. And each one has its own color. So as I go through my answer, I'm going to highlight my restate in yellow, my answer in blue, my cited evidence in pink, and my explanation in green. So again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to read this answer to us. I'm going to read the whole thing first. Then I'm going to go back in and piece by piece recognize some things about my writing. And this is going to help you be able to do your own paragraphs about your own characters from your book over this exact same question. So here we go. How have the pressures in your character's life challenged them to adapt and change? Here's my answer. The pressure of being popular has caused Will to become more ruthless to his so-called friends. In the story, Will is so desperate for popularity that he makes it clear to readers that he's only using the Allens for temporary friendship until he's able to become friends with the popular kids. On page 60, it says, And each of us knew exactly what he would do if he ever found one. He would hold the lucky clover tight in his hand, close his eyes, and wish he was so popular that he would never have time to spend, or he would never have to spend time with the other two again. In this evidence, it shows that Will never really intended to be friends with, here it is again. Thank God I'm checking. With the Allens, and was just keeping them close for now until he got what he actually wanted. If the pressure to be popular wasn't on Will, readers could infer that he might not have had the same level of ruthlessness as he does now. Instead, he has become an unlikable character and friend. So I've gone through the process of really just answering this question, demonstrating my understanding of this character Will in a way that paints a clear picture who he is and why he is the way that he is based on the pressures he's under. I've also included cited evidence that fully supports what I'm saying. And so now I'm going to go through and I'm going to recognize some pieces of my writing that you could start to recognize in your own writing. So the first is right here. The pressure of being popular has caused Will to become, this right here is the restate, where we've basically taken this question and we rephrased it in a way that we begin to answer it. So the pressure of being popular has caused Will to, and I'm going to say in my answer how he's adapted and changed to become, actually this become is part of the blue, become more ruthless to his so-called friends. Okay. That right there is my restate and answer. The pressure of being popular has caused Will to, and now I'm going to answer the question, become more ruthless to his so-called friends. Now, the next step I've done here is before I cited my text evidence, I wanted to give readers just a little summary of what's going on in the story that would help us understand this evidence that I'm going to provide. So I've just written a little summary here by saying, in the story, Will is so desperate for popularity that he makes it clear to readers that he's only using the Allens for temporary friendship until he's able to become friends with the popular kids. I basically asked myself, well, okay, if I've never read this story, what if I'm writing and someone has never read this story, what details about the story might they need to know in order to understand what's going on in my text evidence? And so I just sort of considered like, okay, they need to know that he was super desperate. He was using the Allens. They weren't really even friends. They were just sort of like place fillers at the time until he found his real friends, the popular kids. And so all of that is considered part of our answer because you're simply just providing your own work here to say, okay, here's what's happening in the story. And so right now I've restated, I've given an answer, I provided just a little summary in order to make sure they understand the evidence. And then I introduced the text evidence by saying, on page 60 it says, notice I didn't jump right into the evidence, I introduced it first. I actually did so in a way that makes it clear what page I'm looking at, which is, good quality writing. And then I found an example and quoted it word for word right out of the text, just like you guys have done. And at this moment in the story, you guys, on page 60, this is when he's talking about how the second he finds a lucky clover, or the second the Allens find a lucky clover, they're going to wish to be popular and just ignore each other for the rest of life. And I thought that was a really good piece of evidence to support that he's become sort of ruthless to his friends, because I feel that that's pretty mean to say he would never really, give them the time of day again if he could wish for on a clover. And so I thought that was a really good example to support this idea of him being really ruthless. And then the last step is my explanation. I said, in this evidence, it shows and basically what I've done is I've explained just a couple of things in this explanation. I've explained what's going on in the evidence. Will never really intended to be friends with the Allens. He's just keeping them close for now. Brief explanation of what's going on in the evidence. And then I take it right back to this idea of pressure. If the pressure to be popular wasn't on Will, readers could infer that he might not have the same level of ruthlessness as he does now. I'm basically trying to emphasize in that sentence that the only reason he's really that ruthless is because of the pressure to be popular. That if he wasn't under pressure to be popular, he may not actually be ruthless at all. And so I'm trying to go back to my question of how has the pressure caused my character to change by making it really clear that this ruthlessness probably isn't really him. It's based on the pressure that he's under. And so that's my thinking on this particular sentence of explanation. And then in my last sentence, I just wanted to reiterate that, because of the pressure, he's really unlikable and he's really not a great friend. Just to, again, bring it back to how he's sort of been forced to change into somebody he's not, or somebody really not good, all based on the pressure of being popular. So notice here, I've got my full paragraph and I've included all of the pieces. Okay, every single piece is included from the strategy. Now, the part you're going to have the hardest time with here is going to be the explain, where you ask yourself, okay, what honestly am I explaining? And so I just want to remind you that in your explanation, you're really explaining two things. What's going on in the text evidence you wrote. Help readers understand it. Assume we've never read the story and we're only getting our information from what you write. Okay? In your writing, everything that you say in your written work should show your depth of knowledge about your book and your character. You should assume that me, the reader and the grader of this work, has never read your book. And you want to be that clear and that precise when you go to write, so that you're showing me that you fully understand it enough where you could teach it to me and help me fully understand it. And so that's the first step of the explain. And then the second step is to explain how the evidence you picked supports your answer. Notice in this case, I said my answer is that he has become more ruthless. And I brought my answer right back to that idea of ruthlessness right here. Okay, I've said, here's how he's become more ruthless. Now, could I add more information? Absolutely. I could definitely edit this and make this better and stronger. But for now, I've went ahead and I've included this idea of ruthlessness in there just to explain this moment a little bit more. And so you guys are going to be writing a couple of paragraphs answering this exact same question, but instead with your character's pressures, your text evidence, and your explanations. And as you do those and write those paragraphs, I am going to ask that you highlight your typed paragraphs with the correct colors that we've used to label your pieces of the race strategy. So you'll look at the paper that we did in class and we highlighted the different colors. And those are the colors that you're going to use in order to color code your paragraphs. All right. If you have any questions, obviously I'm available in class. We're going to work on this together. It's our first ever practice at Real Race Strategy mini essay writing. And so, obviously I'll have some flexibilities on this, but you're basically going to be writing like a rough draft for me, and that's going to help me edit it and help you work to improve it. All right. Have a great day.